Hold the audio now unmuted.
Okay, just a couple more minutes. Actually, there's several MAAC members. Thank you, Shayna. I'm wondering about Buddy. Rob, do you think that we should give Buddy a call?
Hi, Heidi. This is Cesar. I'm actually doing that as we speak.
Thank you, Caesar. Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay. Is that all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to hang up now. Okay, thanks, man.
Madam Chair, Buddy is in.
I'm in. Yeah, thanks.
Glad
Okay.
to see you, Buddy, or
Yeah.
at least hear you.
Okay, let me see. Can you see me now? Let me.
Not. There you go.
How's that? Okay. All right.
Beautiful mountains. I love it.
That's right. Okay.
All right. So let me get 1 second. Okay, my name is Heidi Case. I'm the current chair of the MAAC. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to have, we're going to go around and first I'll call on the MAAC members in attendance and have each of you introduce yourself.
Hold the audio now unmuted.
And then we'll move on to introducing everybody else who has joined us.
Okay.
I'll start out with our Vice Chair, Phil.
Philip Sclover, I am the Vice Chair. I guess I give my background. I am an attorney. My specialty area is workplace discrimination law. I was formerly Associate General Counsel of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I do have an interest in disability law, and I enjoy being a member of this council.
Thank you, Phil. Rob?
Hello. Hi, good evening. My name is Rob Dooley, and I've been a MAAC council member since 2017.
Thanks, Rob. Buddy?
Buddy Moore, member of the MAAC, also the outreach coordinator for the Bernice Fontenot Senior Wellness Center.
Thank you. And Helen?
Sorry.
You're doing
Didn't
great.
get anything going today. Just
Can you just introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm trying.
Okay. We can hear you. Just,
Hello.
we hear you. Can you hear us, Helen?
I'm trying.
We can hear you.
I know. I can't do any better than I'm doing.
Okay.
Oh,
All right, this is Helen. She's also our treasurer. Welcome and glad you're here. I'm going to start out with some members of the DDOT staff. Caesar, can you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. Cesar Barreto, ADA Coordinator with the District Department of Transportation, Equity and Inclusion Division.
Thank you. Zachary?
Hi, everyone. Zachary Smith, Equity and Accessibility Program Analyst with DDOT.
Thank you. And our other DDOT person, Haley?
Hi, I'm Haley Peckett. I am the Interim Associate Director for the Curbside Management Division at DDOT.
Glad to have you. And another one of our presenters today, Nat.
Hello, I am Nat Cannon. I am with the Georgetown Business Improvement District. And I'm happy to be back.
Thanks. Let's see. Oh, how could I forget? Another DDOT, important DDOT member, Nana.
Good evening, Chairperson Case. My name is Nana Bailey Thomas, and I am the Chief Transportation Equity and Inclusion Officer for the District Department of Transportation.
Great, thank you for being here. We have a few other community members. Rachel?
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all again. I'm Rachel Goss. I'm Commissioner and Vice Chair of the DC Commission on Persons with Disabilities.
Glad you joined us this evening.
Me too.
Jim?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Elliott. I'm the co-chair of the DC Pedestrian Advisory Council, and I'm happy to join you tonight.
Glad to have you also. And of course, last and never least, our own administrative assistant, Shayna.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. I provide administrative services to the MAAC, and thank you for your patience with the passcode today.
All right. And did I miss anybody? All right. So the first order of business is approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Would someone like to make a motion?
Phillips Glover, I so move.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Discussion. Anyone have any comments or concerns about last month's meeting minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting it signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Our first order of business, which old business, is we're going to hear, Phil, how did you want to move on this? Would you like to hear from Georgetown first? Would you like to discuss the recommendation? How did
Yes,
you?
I think that I will give an introduction
Certainly.
to bring everyone up to date as to where we are on the issue, and then turn the meeting over to Nat Cannon, if that is okay with you.
Awesome. Go right ahead.
Okay, the MAAC has been involved with, has been aware of the issue of the Georgetown sidewalk expansion since, I believe, May of this year, when I, coming up from my 13-month hibernation, returned to Georgetown, where I go to a pottery studio. I was surprised to see vast changes in the sidewalk. And I thought that it raised issues which the MAAC should discuss. We discussed the issue, heard from, I believe, Nat Cannon at that time. She gave us an overview. In early September, Buddy Moore and I took a trip to Georgetown. This was a private excursion, a so-called site visit. We walked the streets, saw the sidewalk expansion, some changes which had been made since the first discussion before the MAAC. Buddy drafted a report of our visit, which was largely favorable to what the Georgetown group had done. At the last meeting, a motion was proposed that the MAAC recommended that scooters and bicycles be prohibited from the commercial districts of Georgetown, which I believe is coextensive with their sidewalk expansion program. At that meeting, we agreed to have further discussion. At this meeting, I spoke with Nat Cannon, and she agreed to brief us, give us an update. It is my understanding, which Nat confirmed, that the that permanent approval of that expansion will be sought in December with DDOT. In my discussion with Nat, I asked her to address that, assuming permanent approval is granted, what changes are foreseen. And she raised an additional issue, which I thought would be of interest here, namely that there are community elements which would like or desire to limit the sidewalk expansion only to those areas where or that have the sidewalk build out only where there is a restaurant, and not build out in other areas. This issue, I believe, maybe have disability implications, because the Georgetown sidewalks are among the narrowest in the city, and any additional sidewalk space would facilitate persons with mobility issues. I hope that Nat Cannon will address this, and I look forward to hearing what she has to say. And Nat, please take the floor.
If before Nat comes on, if I may just add, just for clarification, Phil and I are both visually impaired. Just Buddy Moore here.
Well, thank you for the introduction. That was very I am sharing my screen so I can share some images and some information for my update. So bear with me here. I'll go through some of our proposed changes, how things have been working, and then at the end of the presentation, I've listed the different changes proposed by the bid or by other people, and then you as a committee, the council, can provide feedback on the different elements you would like. So this is just what Philip has already said. We built it in April, May, June, and now we are trying to permit it for the following year. So here are some images of the decks. They are flush with the curb. They extend about 6 feet into the curb lane, and they are completely surrounded by interconnected concrete barriers or concrete planters, except if there is a bus stop. And at bus stops, there is a break in the concrete barriers so people can get on and off the bus directly from the deck. So this shows people sitting on the deck, people waiting at a bus stop, planters on the deck, a lot of people being accommodated by the extra walking space, space for people with disabilities, space for people with strollers, dining, which has added great vibrance to the Georgetown streets. And that brings us to our next slide. These are I've listed here the elements of the project, and I'll give a quick update on each one of the categories. So for the dining on the deck, it is generally popular. And so we would like to keep all of these places. There are no places that are traffic safety issues. For people, so meaning walking space, these areas are well used, especially on M Street during peak times. There's times on Wisconsin Avenue when there's not crowds of people, right? There's not crowds of people all day, every day in Georgetown. And so we have a lot of pressure to remove places that are just for expanded walking, like Philip said. This is coming from residents of Georgetown, and they are working with the ANC to try to have all of these places removed. The ANC will not support any extended sidewalk area, unfortunately. So we are under pressure to remove it, but we would like to hear what you have to say on this at the end. So tell us what you think. Don't be shy. There's lots of controversy. For the bus stops, they are working well according to the traffic study. We had an independent traffic or transportation experts look at this project, and we just got those results back. So there's better places to wait for the bus, and the bus can pull up without cars blocking the bus stops. So that is positive. We are proposing to keep all of the deck at the bus stops. For cars, there's actually more space for loading and pickup drop off. So that's a good thing for people of all abilities. To have, instead of just parking, there's more spaces coming and going, more opportunities for cars to pull up. And we will be adding more loading zones as a result of the traffic study in a few locations. For bikes and scooters, we feel like there is an increasing demand for parking bikes and scooters. And this is due to the district's new policy that like the shared scooters and shared bikes have to be locked up to objects in the streetscape. They can't just be loose. And so we want to provide more bike racks. I will mention though that because we are under pressure to reduce the deck footprint a lot, the ANC has requested that we move some of our bike racks mid-deck. So there might be a restaurant and then bike parking and then another restaurant. And so that means that to get to the bike and scooter parking, some people, there are little breaks from the street side, but people also might be more likely to go on the sidewalk with their bike and scooter. And so that could be an item that you comment on at the end. Okay, so those are our categories. And then I will say my next few slides get into the weeds on the data. So I'll just go through this quickly. So this is showing, if you see our blue line, there's an uptick in pedestrian traffic at the time we built the deck. We have pedestrian counters around Georgetown that help us understand how many people are on the sidewalks. So that's a good thing. This graph shows us that Georgetown, which is the blue line, has done well compared to some other neighborhoods over this year. And we got a boost around the time the decks were built. And so this is data from mobile devices collected from an organization called Placer. Anyway, so it's good news for us. This slide shows that we surveyed people on the street, we surveyed businesses, and we surveyed the residents of Georgetown to understand how people felt. And there's always mixed results. And when the results don't show what people like, they say that the results are bad. And some people called our results fake news. So this is to know that we have gone to a lot of effort to understand people's feelings, and there's a lot of mixed results. Generally, visitors like the deck. Businesses are mixed. The restaurants like the deck, of course. Some smaller businesses have some concerns about losing parking. And then the residents some like the dining, but they don't like the extra walking space. Anyway, so that's that slide. This is just kind of a summary of what I've already said. And now I will show you the 2022 proposal. So this is the current build out. So the dark blue is what you want to look at because that is the extended sidewalk. That is the walking space. And then I'll show you on the next slide what is being reduced. So I'm going to toggle back and forth. You can see that a lot of the blue is disappearing in our proposal. And again, that is not because we don't, as a bid, don't like the deck. We're removing a lot of it due to pressure from the ANC and the residents to remove the deck. So I'm just going back and forth, showing blue disappearing. And then there's another slide where there are arrows showing all the places that are where a deck is being removed. And most of that is at the request of the community. And there's a few locations where a deck has been removed due to safety issues or need for more loading. Okay, so there are a few other little things we'll change about the program. We got to keep our enforcement up. That's aesthetic stuff. We need to streamline some of our maintenance practices, make sure there are never tripping hazards. Okay, and here's my last slide that shows 5 items that I've discussed that we're proposing to do in 2022. Number 1, remove most of the walking sections. Number 2, add more planters to increase the aesthetics. Number 3, additional bike and scooter parking mid-deck instead of section ends. Number 4, enhanced enforcement of aesthetics. Number 5, vigilant maintenance to ensure decking appears cared for and is safe and inviting. So I can answer questions and turn it back over to you, Philip, if you want to lead the next section.
Phil, you're muted, sweetie. We can't hear you.
Hold the audio now unmuted.
Okay, I do have one comment. This morning, when I went to Georgetown, I had a negative experience, which I'd like to raise with you, Nat. I took a taxi cab. I asked the taxi driver to drop me off at the corner of Wisconsin Avenue and Blues Alley. The cab driver dropped me off, I guess about 25 feet from Blues Alley. Now, Blues Alley is between M Street and the C&O Canal on Wisconsin Avenue. Now, when I exited the cab, I was faced with a barrier, so I could not walk directly onto the expanded the build out or on the standard sidewalk. I had to walk in the street for about 25 feet until I reached Blues Alley. That was really no safety problem for me because I know Georgetown. I knew precisely where I was. However, for individuals not familiar or have less eyesight than I have, could be in a safety hazardous situation. I just raise that. Annette, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I'm glad you've brought this up. This is something we've grappled with. And actually in our initial design, we had gaps in all the barriers. We had one barrier and then a gap and then one barrier and a gap to allow, in emergencies, if people need to, get across the street or to, allow for those circumstances that you described. That design layout was changed because of concerns about vehicles hitting a single barrier and perhaps being able to tip it over. Whereas if there are many barriers interconnected, it's harder to tip them over. And so we went back and did interconnected barriers. So,
okay, but this will present a problem. For
Yeah.
example, if you have a Metro Access van, and persons are stepping out at the location where I was to get to the to say Blues Alley, that person has to walk along the street.
Yeah.
Which I think is something which truly needs to be addressed.
Yeah, if I could ask you a question, if we were to go back and create more gaps in the barriers, how frequently would be good to restore some gaps? Would you have a recommendation?
I don't know, but it's
Okay.
look, it certainly would be an improvement. And look, everything one does is balancing. And look, this is earth, not heaven. And clearly the more openings, the better it is. I personally don't know, but to walk 20 feet could present a danger, especially someone who does not know where she or he is. So I just raise this for your knowledge.
It's a great comment. I will report that back to the team.
Phil, this is Heidi. I'm confused. So I'm thinking he pulled up on a part where there is still the extension, yes or no?
Yes.
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 But there wasn't a place to get on. So because there were straight barriers, that's what caused you the distance to walk in the street.
Yes.
Am I understanding that? Okay. But one thing I'm on that very topic, and I am blessed to be able to see that map where she's talking about all the places, particularly along Wisconsin, where that extension is going to come out. And so the extension, am I understanding when you said the blue, see the blue leaving, that's where there won't be any extension. And so that is going to create a great number of places for Metro Access vehicles, taxis, etc., to do pick up and drop off. So with all those places, we're going to greatly increase the pickup and drop off, which just to say the MAAC is very supportive of maximizing pickup and drop off options for a wide variety of our vehicles.
Now, if I can make one comment, I did not see any problems along M Street. The only problem I had or saw was on Wisconsin Avenue below M, or between in that particular build out. When Buddy and I took our tour or field trip, we looked quite carefully. There were plenty of spaces where Metro Access or a taxi or for hire vehicle could stop and safely let passengers out. And again, I think overall, I'm very much in favor of the sidewalk extensions. I just raise this as one concern or one situation which I encountered this morning.
Right.
If I can just add here, I'm not very, Buddy Moore, yeah. I'm not very familiar with Georgetown, but I was somewhat impressed with the design and the layout. And so my question is, what was the opposition of the ANC commission? It wasn't totally clear.
Parking.
Yeah, that's a great question. Initially, most of the concerns from the residents were about loss of parking, with the thought that more vehicles would be roaming around the residential area looking for a place to park. There are a lot of parking garages in Georgetown. So, but that's a big change to have to go into a garage, pay a lot more money than to park on the street. Lately, in our conversations with the ANC, the concerns are about aesthetics. And so that's just, even though we did the best job we could to make it a very nice design, and we have to have concrete, the district is forcing us to do that. We want, it has to be safe. They don't like the look of concrete in Georgetown because it's historic. So of course it's not a permanent installation, it's temporary, but they say they don't like the look of it. And they also don't like the look of it when it's empty. So sometimes it's empty. And so most of their pushback is. So I will say, Philip mentioned one other thing to me on the phone. You said that you were getting off the bus once when it was wet and the deck was a little bit slick.
Yes, that's true.
So we are I will also take that comment back to the team, and we'll look at adding a kind of a little rubbery surface that you can kind of paint on to the deck right where you step out. There are some truncated domes, but to add some more section that's non-slip to make sure there aren't accidents when people step on and off the bus.
Thank you, Nat. Are there other first MAAC members that want to ask questions or make a comment? Rob or Helen?
Question, can you hear me at all? Okay, my question is there any chance of making the barriers translucent so that people can see through them? So they can see where they are, on that street? They can't. It might have been easier for Phil if their street had clear plastic or clear something so that he could see vaguely where he was. I don't know if that's crazy or not. I just thought I'd ask.
It's a great question. I think we would love a solution like that. Currently, concrete, because it's so heavy, that's the safest. And so safety takes precedent.
Okay, well, that's fine.
But we are exploring, or we hope to explore, when we get into next year, maybe could you do a series of bollards that would also provide safety, but have more visibility?
Right. I drive through Adams Morgan and I see their I guess they look like they're little houses, and you can't always see through them. And if you don't know where you are, you get out of the bus, then you're stuck.
Yes, that's a great comment. I'll add to the list.
Thank you,
So
Helen.
anyway, that's my question right now. Thank you.
How about you, Rob? I was expecting you to have some comments about parking or spaces for parking.
I just want to support your comment about how we're very supportive of pickup and drop-off zones. That's helpful. So I want to thank Georgetown Business Improvement District for experimenting with that and thinking of new ways to use our public space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Are there any other people that who are here that would like to ask a question or make a comment about the Georgetown sidewalk extensions?
Hey, this is Jim. I have a question. So the extensions that are being removed, proposed to be removed, the space that those occupy currently, will that be returned to parking, or will that become pickup drop-off area?
Good question. It will be a combination depending on the location. So on Wisconsin, most of the areas will be returned to parking. We do want to try to add a shorter time limit. So instead of the standard 2 hours, it would be 15 or 30-minute parking. On M Street, most areas would be converted to loading. Loading zones are flex zones. So, the pickup, drop off and loading.
And with the parking, did you study whether the lack of parking or the removal of parking was actually resulting in additional traffic in Georgetown? Was that, because it seems to have been a point of contention early on, but I'm wondering if it was actually true.
That's a great question. I don't think that specific item was scoped in the study. I know that they did do kind of a parking analysis looking at, how many of the, spaces on a street are open at any given time, and are they zone 2 parking stickers, just to kind of see, are these, people who might live here, or are these people who've driven in, who are shopping? But that's a good question. I'm not sure if that's something that you could determine, are there more people, driving around looking for parking as a result of the program.
Yeah.
But if you have, we do have continuing analysis. We'd love to, connect with you later and have some good ideas about analyzing this. We'd love to look at that.
All right, thank you. I'm looking at our time and we've really spent quite a bit of time on this. Phil, is there a final, anything I look like you had your hand up? Then we'll move on. If you can unmute, Phil, please. We're still not hearing you. I'm sorry. It didn't get there.
Okay. As a result of the opposition, will there only be build outs where there are an established restaurant who wishes to have that build out?
We anticipate that there will still just be a small amount of spaces for walking that was shown in the map. So more on Wisconsin, like the 3100 and 3200 block, because that's where there's lots of foot traffic. And then also the bus stops, where there's bus stops.
Thank you.
thank you so much, Nat, for coming back and sharing all this information and being so collaborative. We appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing this conversation as this project evolves and moves into more permanency.
Mhm. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Nat.
much.
Thanks, Nat.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into new business, and our next item on the agenda is we're going to get kind of an update on curbside management from Haley Peckett, and then we can talk a little bit about that as follow-up to our discussion about curbside access with the DDOT director, Everett, in our last month. So feel free to jump in.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you all see and hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I think I last came to this group talking about MAACDC, and I'm in a different role now, but still excited to talk to you. I'm going to provide just a high-level overview of some of the things that the Curbside Management Division has been working on for the last year and what we're planning on doing in the next fiscal year. I'm happy to take any questions. One thing that is a big change that we've had is that we've changed our name from the Parking and Ground Transportation Division at DDOT to the Curbside Management Division. And what this means is that our curbs are not just for parking cars. And this has always been the case, but this is making it more visible that our curbs are about loading people and goods. They're about mobility, and they are also about vehicle storage. So we wanted to be more holistic about what the group that I work in includes, and there are lots of different tools in our toolkit in terms of how we can have safe and equitable access to the curb and make our curbs work for us as the place where our transportation system and our destinations come together. A couple of things we've been working on. One big thing is a lot of internal process improvements that we have been doing to make some of the programs we have work better and to make them work faster. So 3 examples. One is our reserved disability parking permit program. And this is for residents that have disability placards, permanent disabilities. They are permitted to have a reserved spot in front of their house if they live in a single family house. However, we have had some significant delays in terms of processing those applications, in part because of COVID, but also in terms of coordination with our sign shop. So we have updated our process, and we've been doing a big blitz to install and overcome that backlog. Another is that we have updated our process for commercial loading zones, and we have created an SOP, a standard operating procedure, so that we have more clarity on how to request those commercial loading zones for goods delivery, and some updated data so that we have better information about how those are being used. And finally, we held a working group across DDOT that looked at how COVID has changed the way we've used our curbs. So one example is that we created a lot of PUDO zones that were being used primarily for passenger pickup and drop off. And during COVID, they became used primarily for on-demand delivery or food pickup and drop off. And so the ways that these short-term spaces, it didn't change the need for those spaces, but where they were being requested did change. And so having that working group, we came up with a process to coordinate internally and talk about how to use different tools and how to elevate complexity of different curbside requests. So what does that mean to you? It means that when you come to us in the future and say, we would like access to the curb, or there's a business or a resident who puts in a request, we now have a faster process and greater coordination to serve you. And I think that the COVID time period was a very good opportunity for us to make a lot of these internal facing improvements because traffic was less, people were traveling less, and this was a good opportunity for us to think about how we can serve you better once travel activity picked up. I know this group has been very interested in PUDOs, pickup and drop off zones. So I will note that a PUDO allows, it is a specific area that's designated for passenger loading or unloading, but it really is allowing that short-term goods loading and unloading too. We have halted installation of new PUDO zones in FY21 because we are working on enforcement of the PUDOs we have and want to make sure we have a clear way to know when we're installing a new one. There were a lot of temporary PUDOs installed at the beginning of COVID. So we are assessing whether those need to remain permanent, and if they do, they'll get permanent signage. We have several that we've removed and replaced with international no parking signs, which accomplishes a similar purpose, but does not designate them as strongly. We have trained 50 of our traffic control officers and held 4 trainings to have our traffic control officers enforce PUDOs, which is a huge issue to make sure that we keep those spaces open. And we've done some research on how the PUDOs are being used. 90% of them do have turnover within 15 minutes, but we have some data on that. We have worked with the Department of For-Hire Vehicles, specifically on 14th Street in Columbia Heights, talking about some more ways that we can work better on taxi stands, PUDOs, and enforcement. So that's something that is still outstanding, but we're continuing to coordinate. And we have done some pilots in terms of geofencing with rideshare vehicles so that we can better direct those vehicles to the areas that we think are the safest. And one example of that is Blagden Alley. Our division also contributed to the streetery guidelines. We have a new forthcoming permanent streetery program. And that is currently with review in the mayor's office right now, but there are some accessibility standards in terms of compliance with ADA, as well as a curbside management and delivery plan that's required so we can ensure that there are appropriate passenger and delivery pickup and drop off zones, and that streeteries won't impede with that. So we will be reviewing each of those with that in mind. And that's my quick summary of FY21, the last year. And then looking forward, in addition to trying to stand up our PUDO program and start implementing according to some of our new processes and starting enforcement, continued coordination with Department of For-Hire Vehicles. We have some target zones for improvements in the curbside. 14th Street is one of them, as well as Georgetown, Adams Morgan, Navy Yard Stadium area, downtown Anacostia. There's probably a few others that I'm missing. And then we are also working on a pilot for residential non-reserved ADA spaces for residents who don't qualify for RDPP. I'm probably missing something, but I will stop there and happy to answer any questions or provide more details.
Okay, thank you, Haley. Does anyone have questions or comments? Buddy?
Yes, Haley, just a question here, and maybe this is outside of your responsibility, but I noticed that there are some curb cuts that are smooth and others are sort of bumpy. Can you tell me the difference and what's happening there?
I am not 100% sure, so I don't want to answer outside of my expertise.
Sure. Okay.
There may be updated design guidelines, so maybe newer installations are different than older ones, but I certainly can find out the answer for you.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
I think the this is just me, my understanding of the ADA is all curb cuts should have the bumpy domes.
Okay.
But that some of the older ones or different parts of the cities have never been updated
Okay.
to have those. But I'm certainly open to hearing anybody else's perspective on that. There's our man Caesar.
All right, this is more technical. This is a more technical feature, and I'm here to help Haley but I need more guidance, buddy. I need to understand what you mean when it comes to bumpy.
Yeah.
Truncated dome.
No. I want to make sure is it the texture of the concrete that is bumpy, or is it in the program you have truncated dome?
It apparently be in the design. They seem to be as if it's a safety issue or an issue where you know that you're entering a curb cut and exiting it. I guess I don't know.
Okay, so two big items here, and I want to make sure we have that we use in the district, and it's the truncated domes, which are little dots, one next to each other, and you're gonna find those in the curb ramp, or you are in a bulb outs bus stop extension to let you know, hey, your next step is pedestrian interaction, or there's and for service animals, miniature horses and dogs. They mean yes, I know when I say miniature horses, people don't believe me, but there's where they use them really good. They mean they're a little bit of colorblind, so when they see the changes in that contrast in color and the domes, they know that there's a change in elevation, so they kind of like accelerate their step to help out your guardian or the person with the visual disability. But if my concern is that the bumpiness that you see is in the sidewalk itself, and it comes with the different textures that we have of sidewalk, and I'm concerned that one of them is causing to have an issue, you let us know. We do have FlexiPay, pervious concrete. We have that acrylic granite that we use also as a sidewalk, but we're smoothing it out. Have the bricks and the concrete itself, and all the concrete is grooved with a broom at the end, so you see that groovy edges or line texture. Or sometimes we just leave it smooth and sponge it out.
Okay.
So different versions. I want to make sure that we capture all of it in a quick sentence right here. So let me know if it is whenever you get a chance and you go back, just if it is either the sidewalk or it's on the curb ramp trying to go from crossing area from one side to the other. I'm more than happy to help you on any guidance and see if there's a trip hazard issue.
Okay, great. All right, thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions from anybody? Oh, Rob. Go right ahead, Rob.
Yeah, hello. Hi, Haley. Thank you so much for coming. My question is about the Central Business District. For those of you who don't know, the Central Business District is the area south of Massachusetts Avenue Northwest and east of 23rd Street Northwest. You are familiar with that area, right? Okay, great. Yes, so the question is if it's possible to convert all of the street parking at the area to pick up and drop off zones.
Great question. And there's a lot of me that would love to do that. I think that we are not prepared to make that wholesale change. I don't know that we have the political support, frankly, at this time. I think pick up and drop off zones and make a greater conversion of that. I think that's one step. Another thing that you probably can see is there's a lot of multimodal projects that are going in. K Street Transitway, we saw 17th Street going in this year, the 20th and 21st Street bike lanes, and the bus priority team, if you haven't been following, is planning and putting a lot of bus lanes. 8th Street, I think, is going in. So with each of those, we are cutting away at the parking spaces that are there, and we are focused on loading both goods and passenger as our first priority. ADA parking comes in pretty close second in terms of priority of what to put for our curbside space. And then the standard parking comes third.
Yes, that's a very helpful and honest answer, especially regarding the political support. So thank you.
Thanks.
I agree. Thank you, dear. Anyone else have comments or questions? I had two for you, Haley. One, of course, and this is probably standard, but I believe all pickup and drops off zones, even if they're in the middle of the street, need a curb cut. Because depending on the vehicle, the personal vehicle that my partner and I have, the wheelchair access is at the back. So I need a place to be able to access it. And of course, the wheelchair taxis are the same way. So there's my push for that. But also, I don't know, this is further down 14th south than when you're talking about. And I have fussed. I've had a million wheelchair taxis trying to drop me off between Irving and Park in front of the big shopping area there. So that pickup and drop off, that is such a heavy area for pickup and drop off. My 2 cents is it could use a couple, more than just one, because so much is happening there. But further on, it's down at 14th between P and Q. And there's the Whitman Walker Healthcare Center, which I happen to use. But I don't know what you call it. But they're actually, the curb comes out and there's parking. And that's a place that, to me, and I don't know if you call that a PUDO, but it would be awesome for that kind of a place, particularly in front. That's a federal health care center. And down on Georgia, where Mary's Center is, a similar thing, but it comes out nicely, but there's no curb cut. And it gives an awesome place to wait as you come out of there. And particularly now with COVID, there are lines. You don't let anybody in. So there's outside waiting. Does that make sense to you? And that would be another place I think a curb cut would be really helpful.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I can sort of piggyback on Marriott Center, and I visit Marriott Center quite often, and you're absolutely right. A curb cut is needed somewhere in that vicinity, yeah.
Thank you so much. I think Caesar was chomping at the bit to talk about accessible PUDOs, and I know that he has helped me design accessible PUDOs. We haven't, like I said, we didn't install any new ones this year, but I do, I think we're going to be installing accessible PUDOs moving forward and having better guidelines so they don't just go in whenever a business pulls them up. I'll let Caesar talk more to that. I have noted these 2 requests, so I will pass them on to our curbside manager and see what we can do. But I will also make sure that if there's a formal process forthcoming as we get that down to request new PUDO zones or new passenger loading, I'll make sure that you have that information too.
That would be great, Haley. And of course, Caesar, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm happy to report that as part of Division 0, under Haley's supervision here, the curbside management division has worked with Division 13 to purchase accessible access ramps to help those mid-dock PUDOs be more accessible. We have that concern with the temporaries, but we want to make them permanent, and this is the best way to make it permanent. We've access ramps that are movable, so we can transfer them from one area and other within that PUDO zone to see how it works. And basically, we're focused on putting these on the mid-block scenarios. So I'm really happy you brought it up because I totally forgot about this. And it's a really, we got around 13 access ramps that we're purchasing through the Vision 0 initiative.
Great.
this on FY22 and get them on. So I'm really happy you brought it up. Thank you.
These are, you and I know, great minds, right?
Yeah, we got a good team here at DDOT. As an ADA coordinator, I'm really happy and excited to have them. It's easy just to go downstairs and be like, Haley, I need you. And she's like really open there. And her team is always accessible and making sure we get it right. So same thing with the leadership. We have an amazing team. I got Nana supporting every single aspect on equity and inclusion division. And also our director, he's promoting accessibility and equity to the fullest. So I really appreciate it.
I heard that was very apparent in his approval hearing. So I was happy to hear that too. Okay, anyone else have comments on this? Are we ready? Are we able to move on? Okay. Thank you so much for coming, Haley. This is near and dear to my heart. And we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, our next item, goodness, on the agenda is the update from DDOT. Is that you, Caesar?
That'll be me, Madam Chair.
Okay, Zachary, please. Since we're near the end of the year, we just thought they can give us some updates on things we've discussed and see what's been happening as we get ready to go into the new year with performance hearing. So please take it away, Zachary.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that introduction. So like you said, this is just a look back at DDOT's progress in fiscal year 21 on items of interest to the MAAC. We heard from Haley about the efforts that are happening with curbside management, but I just wanted to briefly go over a few infrastructure and legislative achievements this past fiscal year as well. A few of these were actually moved forward because of the MAAC's discussions and input on some of these items. So essentially this update is to help provide a little more context for your next agenda items. And also, I know we at DDOT would be really interested to know if there are any initiatives or priorities that you want to focus on more next year or explore more. And so just with that, really briefly, this past fiscal year, DDOT did repair about 25 miles of sidewalks, just getting to that sort of goal of creating more accessible pathways for our residents. We enhanced accessibility at 39 bus stops within the district. And I know some of those accessibility improvements included some floating bus stops that the MAAC was briefed on in April of this year and provided input on those. Also, we replaced and installed about 11,000 signs just to make them easier to read. Installed about 126 high visibility crosswalks, again, making sure that people are able to navigate our streets a little bit easier. Also, the MAAC provided input to our traffic signal optimization program, which included installations of leading pedestrian intervals to give people more time to cross the street, audible pedestrian signals, which support those with visual impairments, helping them cross the street as well. And we also had 6 hawk signals that were installed at 6 intersections. So outside of the infrastructure improvements, we did have the another legislative item, the Lock 2 infrastructure requirement for scooters. Again, as it was mentioned with the Georgetown bid update, that just requires users of scooters to lock them to infrastructure when they're done. And we have heard the comments from the MAAC and other advisory committees and other initiatives on continued issues with seeing scooters still misplaced in those pathways. And finally, we launched the traffic safety investigation dashboard, and this will help with transparency of repair requests for either sidewalks or making requests for speed humps. we hope that this will allow residents to see where they are in the process of getting those completed. So we launched that a few weeks back, and that's also something you should take a look at too. All right, and with that, I'll take any questions. And I also have Caesar here to answer those that I can't. But again, this was just to provide some background and some more context for the next.
Yes, Zachary.
Yes.
Yeah, Buddy Moore. And I'd like to thank DDOT for installing the audible pedestrian signals at the intersection of Wisconsin and Albemarle. I know Phil and I have been sort of pushing with that for quite a while, so we finally have it installed. So thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, no problem. Madam Chair, you're on mute.
So sorry. Zachary, two parts. I would love for us to be able to put this on our website. So would you be able to email your PowerPoint to Shayna? And we can also share it on our mail list, because I think that this is wonderful and we should be out there touting the things that have been accomplished.
Right. I don't know if I have to run this through our public information office, but I can definitely see about that and get these to Shayna.
Makes sense. Second, if you can lower it now, it'll help me see if people have questions or comments or have their hands raised. Okay. Questions, comments, thoughts about any of it? Rob, was that your hand? No, just your stretching. Okay. Jim?
I have a question about the 25 miles. I'm wondering how that was calculated. Is that 25 miles of fully accessible blocks now that we have that we didn't have before? How do you get 25 miles of repaired sidewalks?
Right. It's not necessarily new construction. It is sort of like what was in our MAACDC plan. We strive to complete sidewalk repairs each and every year. And so this is just the number that our team provided to me. Does that help answer your question? No.
Well, not entirely. One of the things that I'm the co-chair for the Pedestrian Advisory Council, and in a letter to DDOT and several others, we requested more metrics on sidewalk repairs. And we were wanting to know sort of mileage in terms of fully accessible block lengths, because really if there's an obstruction along a block at some point, it's not an accessible block. So if you've made a repair at one point but not at another, where there's a problem with the sidewalk that impedes accessibility or undermines accessibility, then it's not accessible. So I guess I think that it would be helpful to understand that and to focus on trying to make complete blocks accessible.
Right. Well, I don't have that granular information, but I will say the MAACDC website does show, it does have a map of where the sidewalk repairs were made.
If I may, Zach, Jim, just to clarify a little bit of the question, when DDOT does pavement repairs and sidewalk condition repairs and goes on the street and they say we're going to work from this limit to this limit on this road, they oversee the entire corridor to see if there's issues on the sidewalk and on the pavement, and they will address it within time. That's where the number is coming from. So usually what you see in MAACDC as a map and saying this is completed, when they say 25 miles, they look at that linear reference of the corridor, they take the entire block and they look into both ends of the block. So this 25 miles, that might be 50 miles if we go one side and the other, but they're not counting it that way. They're counting it as a linear reference line of the road. So we say 25 miles because that's the respective length that we did linearly, but in reality, we might be doing 50 miles total of repairs if needed. That's another key element here. But like I said, like Zach mentioned, we may be running that through the public information team to confirm the numbers one more time. We just the fiscal year, so we want to make sure that the numbers are accurate.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments to make about updates on what they have gotten accomplished this year? One of the, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I think the co-chair of the pedestrian advisory council, is his name Jim?
That's here, yes.
Jim, you said that you made a request for this information. To whom and when did you make that request so we can follow up?
We submitted a letter, I think it was in February, to Director Lott, to the DPW director, and to the mayor. And I can share that with you, requesting various metrics related to pedestrian access and infrastructure.
Just curious, did you share that with your PAC liaison from DDOT?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you recall who that was? I'm not sure if that switched or not.
I think it's Kristen McAllister.
Okay. Yes, if you could forward that letter to myself and Zachary and Cesar, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. I'll put my email
Thank
in
you.
the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. So to get back to one of the reasons we wanted to have these updates is to start of setting our priority calendar year. And in January, probably will be the DDOT performance hearing where the MAAC and PAC and BAC always testify and share with the council. We want to share all these wonderful things that they have worked on. And we also want to talk to them because this is part of the budget process about things we feel have not yet been completed or might be helpful for there to be funds to pursue completion of. And I was just hoping we could have a discussion of, and I encourage community members too, of things that they think are ongoing and need some MAAC support of or to begin working on. Does anyone have, Gerald, I see, Gerald, would you like to introduce yourself? He joined us during the presentation after introductions. Would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, Gerald? Okay. Well, how about anybody? What would you like to see the MAAC be working on over this next year? Particularly hoping to hear from MAAC members. Sure, Rob.
Pick up a drop-off zones.
I'm sorry?
Pick up a drop-off zones.
Okay, pick up and drop off zones. Just the increase of them.
Years and bus lanes. Dedicated bus lanes.
Okay. Anybody else? I know. Go ahead, Helen.
If we have a complaint who do we address it to? The Department of the Police or to VDOT? My complaint is generally seeing an awful lot of scooters floating, just lying around yards and sidewalks. Not always at the corner, often anywhere. And I never know whether I should stop and take down the phone number and sit and call them or what. And I don't know who to call. And because I'm lazy, I haven't done anything. But I am curious to know if there's some responsive place I can call and see them to be done about it. I can't list them myself, but I am interested because I could trip over them just as well as anyone. And people need to learn how to deal with something that you can't take in your house all the time or stick in your pocket in your car. So that's my question. Any suggestions? And if you'd like to answer me now or tell me, through email or something, some suggestions of where to call and what to do. Except, I'm not calling the police all the time. It's not fair. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. We had somebody, I think it was last month, but you needed a couple of pieces of information, one of which I found I was determined with taking a lot of pictures of scooters that were not locked, but you need something that's the unique ID of that scooter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's about 3 or 4 different numbers and barcodes on them. And that's really difficult to figure out. Caesar or Zachary, do you know anything about that process? Rob, go. Jump in, Rob.
Hello, sorry, quick comment. Because tomorrow is the federal holiday, they moved my AC meeting to 7 o'clock today, so I have to head over to that other meeting. Sorry, but good to see all of you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Rob, for being there.
Bye. Have a good Thanksgiving.
All right, Madam Chair, the question was about scooters that were misplaced or misparked.
And also bikes, actually, both.
How do you report that? And where? All those details.
Well, one of the ways is 311 to report information like that, our 311 system. Also, we have docklist.mobility@dc.gov, which is
you accidentally muted somehow.
Oh, whoops. I was saying the 311 system, and then there's also an email address, docklist.mobility@dc.gov, which I can put in the chat for everyone. And that's also one avenue to report these bikes and scooters that are misplaced and misparked.
Okay. If you can grab that email too, Shayna, so we can include it in our minutes.
Yep, I got it.
Thank you.
And then if I may, there's one other, usually on scooters, there should be a phone number on the scooter where you can call the company and let them know, and they should respond to pick it up as well.
Okay. Other.
This is Caesar. Caesar, to add to the terms and conditions, one of the rules is that the ID number needs to be visible. It's similar to what the phone number is. And there should be a reference there to that phone number. You make sure that they were in the proper fonts. It shouldn't be like a barcode reading number, really small. It's a number similar to the phone number that is easy to read, readable with what we call the sans font. It can be Arial times New Roman, but it needs to be legible.
The height of it, okay, similar to the size of the phone number.
So it shouldn't be like a barcode. It shouldn't be like a scanner. It should be simple, to the point. And it was one of the terms and conditions. If you cannot read it, and you want to make sure you mention the location where you at, usually a cross street or street name, address, and they will be able to pick it up from there.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful, Caesar. Yeah, we have been running long. Are there other Phil or Buddy or do you guys have any other things that you feel like would be good for the MAAC to? Oh, you have your hand up, Phil. I'm sorry. And then I'll go to you, Buddy.
Yes, I would like to see the statistics of what intersections which have visual prompts of stop, go for pedestrians, where you have right turns on red lights, which are not audibilized. Is that statistic available? If so, can it be available?
Are there still right turns on red in DC? Or did Vision Zero get rid of that? Does anyone know?
No, see, I'm speaking about what is, for example, take Albemarle Street. Excuse me, I confused you. I'm saying left turns on.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That how many intersections which which warn sighted persons that this dangerous condition exists, but does not warn the visually impaired. Is it possible to find out how many intersections like that do not have audible prompts? So we, as a MAAC, can monitor that by seeing how quickly that gap is being closed.
Phil, I thought we asked that question, and I do not remember who came from DDOT, and the number was huge. It was like over 200 and something. And they have some goal, but we can certainly pursue that. I think that's important. We can monitor and encourage more progress. Well, yeah, go ahead, Caesar.
So, hi, Phil. I know that we've discussed this previously, like Madam Chair said, but I wanted to clarify a little bit of your question. And are you looking for vehicle interaction fatalities or accidents within a left turn conflict and a crossing pedestrian, or?
No, what I am looking for is where you have the left turn on red with a visual prompt. How many of those crossings do not have audible prompts? So we can see if that gap is closing, and if it is closing, how fast is that gap closing?
You're just simply looking into data of APS devices and intersections that may have left turning vehicles.
Yes, that's where the danger is that the visually impaired in crossing those streets have no equivalent prompt to the visual ones with the fully sighted have.
I think you've said in the past, Phil, where there's a left turn signal.
Yes.
Exactly. So where there's a left turn signal and no audible signal. And I'm not asking you, but maybe
Phil,
that's.
Phil, you're on
Okay,
mute.
sorry. How many of those intersections still exist?
I think we can pursue that. I think that sounds great. It is 7 o'clock. I appreciate everybody. There's just a couple of quick items, and we can continue this discussion of topics. Two things. One, will be 2 years in December that I have been chair, so it is time for elections. And we were thinking that we would not have a meeting in December because people celebrate different holidays at different times. So we would skip a December meeting and meet again in January, but perhaps have a small MAAC council member only meeting to do elections. And people can run again for the same office, or new people can run. But what are people thinking about that? Do you want to do something like that, or wait until January and have the elections? What are people thinking? Go ahead, Phil. Buddy, Helen, and Phil, it's you guys, so.
Okay, as far as I am concerned, it is up to you, Heidi.
Well, it involves you guys having, but a smaller, shorter meeting just among us. And probably Shayna to keep order and minutes, but would you be willing to do that?
Yes, I would.
Buddy, Helen, is that okay with you?
I have a question.
Sure, Helen.
Helen, do you want us to look around for people who might want to serve, or what? Or is it?
Unfortunately, it has to be among the members. And there's, yeah, so it's not new, it's
okay.
Between us, we might shift around who's treasurer, who's vice chair, who's chair. And
do you want us to write you a note clarifying where we are individually or in a meeting?
well, I was hoping we could meet, but it doesn't have to be in December. We could meet before the January meeting, because we're the ones who vote. We wouldn't have to take a lot of meeting time to do it, and we could announce the results at a regular January meeting. Yes, Phil.
Okay, I suggest that we have a special MAAC-only election meeting at a mutually agreeable time. I think it can just as easily happen on our usual meeting date. It will probably last for an hour or less. And then we can simply announce the results on our website and or at the next meeting in January. If you want a motion, I'll make it.
Okay, go around. Yeah, go ahead, Phil. That'd be helpful. That way we've got it down that way.
Okay, I move that the MAAC schedule a special election meeting on our usual meeting date in December, specifically for and limited to the election of MAAC officers where there are or will be vacancies.
Great. Do I hear a second?
I second it, that we have a
All
meeting
right.
in December.
Yeah, we would do that in December, and then our big regular meeting would be in January. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Awesome. That way we can go home. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here, for your input. I appreciate you. And as someone said, maybe it was Helen, yes. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yes,
And,
happy Thanksgiving.
all right.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all
Happy
so much.
Thanksgiving, Fraser.
Dot, Zachary,
Bye.
Caesar, all of you.
Bye. Thank you.
Nana,